Thanks for tuning in to Bourbon Drop. I'm your host Myron. Today, LARCENY Barrel Proof B522. I know I'm a little late, but figure better late than never. Let's get it.
Bottle drop, bottle drop, bottle drop.
LARCENY B522. Couldn't wait to get my hands on the bottle. Came home, cracked it open, enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it. Now, I really like the LARCENY Barrel Proof lineup. LARCENY Small Batch, just not a big fan of it. It's got some sweet flavor. I would give it to a friend. I don't think that it's something that would be too off-putting to a new bourbon drinker. It goes down pretty easy. It's got some good sweet flavor, but it's just not something that I particularly care for when it comes to a bourbon. The C921, however, was the first LARCENY Barrel Proof that I had ever got. This thing right here was so ridiculously good, it was a shame. You had just that buttery toffee, caramel. I didn't pick up too much nuttiness. What I did pick up was a lot of those sweet, deep maple brown sugar notes that I love in a bourbon. The LARCENY A122, it's a good product as well. I mean, this stuff is fruity. It's very fruit forward. I did pick up some stone fruits. I picked up some bright red fruit notes. I wouldn't necessarily say cherry, but it was very floral and fruit forward. It didn't hit me the same way that the C921 did, which the C921 seemed to be richer in those brown sugar and sweeter syrup notes that I really like. So a lot of those maple notes that guys like and a lot of those deep, rich brown flavor notes, brown sugar notes, those were the ones that stood out to me the most in C921. One thing that I will say is, when it comes to a wheated bourbon, wheaters tend to come across as a little doughy to me. So you'll get this fresh dough smell to them. They also have this dark chocolate note that comes across the back of the palate when they finish. So the finish might be a little long. I'm gonna get into it here in a second, but I just noticed that a lot of the wheated bourbons that I drink, especially when it comes to like anything that's cask strength Maker's Mark. Cask strength Maker's Mark, that comes across with a very heavy dark chocolate note across the back of the palate when it finishes. And I get the same thing out of all three of these as well. So let's get into it. Now, the color on this thing is actually really nice. It is really dark. It's an amber color. I mean, it comes across in the light. They say on the back of the bottle that they're 6 to 8 years old. They actually look a little older than that to me. Yeah. That's that dough note. I mean, it hits you. As soon as I smell it, it's like this punch of dough right in the nose. And this one now, actually, I guess maybe with a little bit of air in the bottle, it's got a little bit of the floral notes as well. You do get some of those apple notes in here. I'm gonna take a couple sips and see if I can get deeper in the glass. Yeah, you get peaches, apples. Some of the floral notes do transfer over to the palate. It drinks at its proof. B522 drinks at 123.8 proof. So it's got some proof behind it. And you can feel it. You can feel it in the nose. Yeah, when I go back to it, it's a rich caramel. There's that deep, rich caramel, dark, brown sugar, chocolate. Some of the alcohol does come through on the palate too. Not like a young bourbon, but you can still taste it in there. Some of those floral notes do come through though, but just in the nose and not on the palate. I do get oak. It's a drying oak too. It hits the tongue, it dries it out, but it's still sweet. It still delivers all of those good sugary notes. Yeah, it's actually, the further it got down in the glass, it's gotten kind of earthy. Like a fresh, almost a fresh cut grass and soil smell. I like it. I like it a lot. This B522 is good. It's really good. Like I said, it reminds me more of the C921. And I keep saying that, so might as well go ahead and give it a taste test. A122 comes in at 124.4 proof. The C921 comes in at 122.6 proof. So they've all got quite a bit of proof behind them. That comes off as a dried cranberry. Dried cranberry, some type of biscuit. And that one's got an earthy note too. Now let me go to the A122. A122 is a lot of flowers. It's crazy the amount of flowers that you get out of this glass. It's like a bouquet of flowers. Like if you were to go to a bouquet and just stick your nose in there. Go in nose deep. Yeah. And I actually get more of a punch on the A122, an alcohol punch. It's got some syrup and raisin. It's almost got like a plum, raisin, maybe prune. Plum, prune, raisin, flowers, earthiness, and punches of alcohol. Oh, coming off of that, this smells more like hay now. It's weird when you put them side by side. It's just, you'll come off of one thing and it'll smell completely different if you go to something else and go back to it. Let's see what the B522 does. Wow. That's like raisins and chocolate, like a raisinette. Or a chunky. If you've ever had a chunky and you smell the chunky straight out of the package, that's what this smells like. And you guys, y'all can let me know in the comments if you experience the same things, because like now this one is all hay and earthiness. This one is flowers and raisins. And this one right here, yeah, that's a chunky. That's just chocolate, milk chocolate, raisins. Let's get into the palate of all three. I know I say it a lot. Caramel, brown butter, and white bread. It is not as drying as the B522. This is oily, it's sweet, it's good, it's so balanced. It's almost got a savory note. Like buttered popcorn. Like almost, I would say, buttered popcorn, and then when you get that salted caramel popcorn. That's what's in that glass. Now I go back to the nose, I get heavy, creamy vanilla. These two are so similar. Side by side, these two, if I put you in a blind, you would probably think I'm giving you the same glass. That's how similar the B522 is to the C921. And like I said, the C921 for a long time was my favorite. Let's go back to it. Very similar. This one, no spiky notes. Wheaters seem to come off a little softer. They don't come off as spiky because they don't have the rye in them. So I don't get a lot of spiky notes. What I am getting is a lot of the earthy hay notes in this one as opposed to this one. This one has that salted caramel popcorn, where this one has that salted caramel popcorn, but it's like a touch of hay underneath. I do get leather across the back. This one has a longer finish. It seems to last just a touch longer. It does have that dark chocolate note that I talk about, that cocoa note. Yeah, the finish is actually sticking around on that one. I'm gonna let that one chill out just a little bit before I go into A122. Give me a second. A122. Now that I get back into A122, the nose is completely different. Some of those floral notes hung around, but they're not as prevalent as they were. A122 comes off as thinner than the other two. It actually comes across the mid and the back with more of a licorice note that I'm really not fond of. And I've said it before in videos, I'm really not a fan of that licorice note. Oak. You can taste the oak, but it's not as drying as the oak in the B522. It's kind of close, but not as drying. Yeah, the floral notes went away. If I had to choose, I would probably still pick the C921. C921 is just, it's excellent. I mean, everything about it, it's well-rounded, it's just all over the board, it's just balanced. Where this one has that hay note and this one has that licorice note. The licorice note, it's not as dominant on the palate as some of the other bourbons that I don't like that carry that note. It's in there enough to where I could pick it up, but it's not in there enough to where I wouldn't drink it again. This right here, that hay note, I don't mind as much, especially since it has the same flavors in this bottle as this bottle, and that hay note isn't enough to make me not go back to the bottle. I wish they released Larceny Barrel Proof more than just 3 times a year. It is that good. If they had it on more of a consistent basis, I would probably pick up every bottle they have, but that's what makes it special. Hey, release it in January, May, and September, you got yourself a winner, especially if it's good juice in a bottle. A lot of people will sit there and chase stuff that is half as good as this. So let's get to the breakdown. Is it worth the chase? Yes. Larceny Barrel Proof, even though it's only released 3 times a year, is worth the chase. I would go after every bottle that they come out with. I haven't had a bad bottle yet. The C921 has been my favorite. B522, second. A122, very close third. Larceny Barrel Proof is worth the money at retail. Is it worth over retail? Yes. I paid over retail for Larceny Barrel Proof. $60 is the going rate. But here in Maryland, you don't know what you're gonna find it for. So will I pay $30 over retail? Yes. I try not to go $30 over retail as I've said time and time again. Is this worth $30 over retail? Yes. Are there better products out there for $60? I don't want to put 1920 up against Larceny Barrel Proof. Larceny Barrel Proof is a wheated product. So it's 68% corn, 20% wheat, 12% malted barley. I don't think that it's fair to put a wheated bourbon up against a regular bourbon because a lot of people like that high rye mash bill, so sometimes that rye gives that spice that wheated bourbons just don't. When I put wheated bourbon side by side with a regular bourbon that uses rye as the secondary grain, they tend to drink softer and they don't do as well. So I don't want to compare the two. So I'm not going to compare this to 1920. But as a wheated bourbon in the $60 range, hard to beat. I haven't had a wheated bourbon in the $60 range or above that's beat Larceny Barrel Proof, especially not C921. So with that being said, I hope you've had as much fun watching this video as I had making it. Till next time.